All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Brew Craic with Loughran Brewing Stores. This week, we're joined with some of our great friends from across the Atlantic. And then we've got James, the boss man there, sitting on a giant pile of barley over in Dundalk, Ireland. So first of all, we've got our good friend, Ian McHarg, who works for the Country Malt Group, and he's based out of Asheville, North Carolina. And then we have another great friend, Matt Simpson, who is the head brewer or brewmaster. I'm not sure what people call what you call yourself over there. We'll figure that out in a minute. So Matt Simpson
I'm
from
just a brewer.
Tennessee Brew Works in Nashville. We're going to touch on a few interesting topics today. Most notably, what we're all talking about, COVID-19. We're going to talk about how that's affecting brewers in America. Both from a supplier point of view and from a brewer's point of view. And we're also going to talk about what beer styles are happening in the States. And then we're going to loop back around to talking about Loughran Family Malt, which Country Malt sells on our behalf. And Matt is a fantastic customer and user of. So first of all, Ian, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. Hey guys, my name is Ian McHarg. I am a division sales manager with Country Malt Group, the business that I've been with for over 8 years now. Started off on the homebrew supply side, working with homebrew retail stores, jumped into the brewery side, and now I'm solidly just a paper and email pusher. We try to be a one-stop shop for all brewers across North America. Supplying everything from malt in 50 or 55 pound bags all the way to bulk silo fills. And then even beyond that, rail cars. We have 13 warehouses across North America, and I am fairly close to our Asheville, North Carolina one, based here in the Southeast US.
Very good. Matt, why don't you jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Simpson with Tennessee Brew Works. I'm the head brewer here. We're based out of Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here about a little over 4 years. Came here from Colorado. Been liking it since. Life is good. Even in the COVID, we're still having fun. We're still brewing beer.
That's about all you can ask for. So I guess what a lot of people don't get to see in Europe is how COVID is affecting their colleagues and counterparts in America, and specifically breweries, tap rooms, on-premise sales, off-premise sales. It would be interesting to hear from Matt of how Tennessee Brew Works is doing from a brewery-specific perspective, I think.
Well, one thing about Nashville is it is a pretty tourist-driven city. That being said, all the bars are closed, which means that we can't really sell draft beer to very many places. And since we're kind of a tourist-driven town, we're a little concentrated more on the on-premise side of things, and we just watched that all fall off to zero one day. Saving grace, we do have good placements with grocery stores and liquor stores and specialty craft beer placements to sell our packaged products, but things have been pretty lean for a while. They did open the bars for a little while, but the mayor, due to a bunch of new COVID cases in Nashville, they put a moratorium on bars again, so we're back to restaurants only, 50% capacity. So package is doing well, kegs and draft is doing poor.
One thing I think that in speaking to a lot of our customers over here, both on the malt and hop side of things, is that a lot of customers have been able to make up a lot of their volume by package sales, and now not while getting to full capacity, they've gotten almost to full revenue because of the increased sell price on small pack versus kegs. Are you seeing a similar trend in Nashville or in the States, you think, or is the package not enough to make up for that revenue?
Well, one thing that has increased a lot is our package to go sales out of our tap room. And the tap room's been actually doing quite well with that. They did change the law here to where we've been able to do beer deliveries. That's helped as well. So tap room sales have been decent, but the brewery for distribution sales have been taking quite a dip. But packaging's been, it's pretty solid. We're still, packaging IPA every week. So that's pretty good. Instead of doing quad batches every week, we're doing, double batches. If we get a little behind, we'll catch up on a quad batch, but but we're still packaging IPA every week, blonde ale and wit every few weeks. Specialty summer beers, we've started doing a lot more of those that normally would be just a draft only product. We've been putting, we developed a bunch of labels and been putting a lot of those out there, and those have done quite well too. So it's not making up for everything, but it definitely has helped a lot. And normally we do a lot of fruited beers in the summer, and normally there's just not enough to go around to put it in a package. So we just put it on draft and sell it all across the bar. That being said, we're now still selling some across the bar at our place, but yeah, we're packaging, 20 to 30% of it into bottles, and it's selling well.
And then, are you seeing? Are you doing both can and bottle? Is there a balance there between the two?
We're just doing all bottles. COVID kind of put a damper in our new canner that we're trying to get, but that'll still happen.
And
just
Matt,
a little.
Did you have an issue with a whole backlog of beer in kegs, pretty much for on-premise sales that you've had to kind of find a new home for?
Well, we did have, right when this all kicked in, we were all ramped up for spring and early summer tourist business. So, yeah, we have had to take some of that back from a distributor that some of it went out of date, destroy it. But it's pretty obviously we're disappointed that we had to buy back some beer, but compared to some other breweries, I think we're in a pretty good spot. At some other breweries that I've heard from, they were taking dated package and kegs back in the hundreds of barrels amount, and it sounded really painful. So yeah, we had some stuff that we had to buy back, but I feel like we're better off than a lot of our friends here in Tennessee and elsewhere in the United States.
And related to that, that's a good question, and this maybe both of you guys can jump in on this. Obviously, there are all different sizes of breweries in the States. There are breweries that are nano breweries that are tap room only, all the way up to national scale breweries that are distributing to supermarkets all over the country. Where do you feel, what segment of that spectrum, yes, what segment of that spectrum of brewers do you think has been most affected by COVID?
I think that just in my opinion, the smaller breweries that were taproom only, that are pretty much considered taverns or bars, that did not serve food, that were not allowed to stay open, small breweries with taproom only, it's a hard living anyways, especially if you're not really distributing. Those guys have been shut down for months, and those guys have been hit pretty hard. I know the few that they're not going to make it. I've seen a couple breweries, they've already listed their equipment for sale. So that's all been, in that smaller, like 1,000 barrels a year or less kind of size. But yeah, if you don't really have an outlet for beer and you're doing draft only and don't have canning or bottling, pretty rough.
Yeah, it's all the more brutal in that the last couple of years, the breweries that have been opening up and trying to do it in an intelligent fashion where they're not going to be having to leverage every single possible thing to get there, have been going with the idea of a tap room based business. The distribution side is a challenge. You got breweries, the big regional guys, Sierra Nevada, Dogfish Head, et cetera, that own so much of the grocery store shelves. And then you've got breweries that have been making great beer for a long time now, like Tennessee Brew Works and Matt, that have the rest of those aisles locked down. So if you're a new brewery, regardless of how good your beer might be, fighting for that grocery store space was not a winning proposition.
It's absolutely brutal.
Exactly. And so the smart guys, at least up to March, were not planning on doing that. They recognized that they could make enough of a margin off of a beer that they're serving in their tap room to survive. And those are the guys. They opened up lean. They opened up from a fiscally responsible mindset. And come March, they just got kicked in the balls or kicked in the crotch. It's the breweries, regardless of what your taproom situation was. Obviously, their doors had to shut. They weren't allowed to have people come in and drink beer. But the ones that were able to make that pivot, like Matt described earlier, the pivot to go beer, not as in I'm selling it to a bar down the road, but as in I'm finding any possible way to package this, whether it's in a crowler machine I just bought off eBay, or in that packaging line that we've had gathering dust in the garage that wasn't game ready. The ones that have done everything they can to get those things up and running and package that beer, they're the ones that are coming through this not well, but they're surviving it. And the problem, I think a major issue that people like Matt are seeing too, that they were selling they were selling on premise for a while, and then enough dumb people not wearing masks rolled in, and enough videos were taken of people doing dumb stuff under the influence that the governor or the mayor decided to take it all away. So as a business, you start to put all your capital in towards, let's make our tap room functional again, and let's suddenly pull it back. I mean, that's a brutal way to run a business.
And the other thing about the United States is that the liquor laws vary so much from state to state that, a brewery in one state that's just a tap room only might have the latitude with their laws to switch gears and sell beer to go somewhere else. In another state, you could totally be handcuffed and not be able to do anything.
And I think one thing we've seen over here in Europe related to that is a lot of brewers seem to have taken the approach that we're just going to sell our beer however we can, and we'll worry about the legalities later because we're kind of in survival mode. So far, it's I haven't heard of anybody getting a slap on the wrist or anything. And it's worked. Like I was talking to some friends of mine a couple of months ago in Copenhagen, and on days that they're not brewing or packaging, every employee is out on a bike delivering small pack to people's houses on a bike on orders that came in on the internet. And they've done that for 3 months and have sold a lot of beer on the back of bicycles, which is fantastic. And then I've seen breweries in the UK that there may be a brewery based in Manchester, and then one day a week they say, okay, this day this week we're delivering beers to these postal codes, and then the next day we're delivering beers to these postal codes. And I mean, they're figuring out how to get it done. And I think brewers over here have had a little bit of a leg up over brewers in the States, maybe, in that everyone over here opened a brewery with some type of distribution model, because taproom culture doesn't exist in Europe like it exists in the States. So you have this large swath of the spectrum of people that said, yes, we're going to sell our beer just in our bar, and that's it. People had to build those relationships with either distributors or bars or off licenses to sell their small pack. And it's so far, like, it's been pretty decent, I think. Do you have anything to jump in there with, Jay?
The main difference is that the taproom model didn't really get going in Europe. And we have had a lot of brewers who've been fortunate enough to avail of the fact that the enforcement authorities have been distracted with other things. But we've seen a lot of collaboration as well, where brewers who have a strong online presence have been helping other brewers who haven't had a strong online presence, like especially the infrastructure to sell online, where brewers have clubbed together and will list other breweries' products on their web shop and stuff like that. And it's been terrific to see that kind of collaborative spirit taking hold, where people are trying to help each other. But it's been it's a long way from finished, and it's a very long way from normal. But I was just curious, Matt, like, so the tap room, so the restaurant part is shut as well, and like the only revenue coming into your tap room is from beer to go, is that right?
Well, when it first started, we could sell food to go too.
Okay.
Now that we're allowed right now to run our restaurant at 50% capacity,
Okay.
that really equates to more, I think around like 35%, just the way that our building's laid out, where we can have proper social distancing with all of our tables. It's less than 50%, but we're allowed to have people in here because we're a restaurant, not just a bar.
So are you filling that 35-50% capacity? You know, are you guys getting visitors coming in to see and to eat?
Yep, it's
great.
We'll have, today's kind of a slow day, but we've
Tuesday.
had some, we'll have 1 or 2 slow days a week, but we'll be, at our capacity, during lunch and dinner on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. Sundays have been pretty good. Mondays actually, for some reason, are fairly good as well. Tuesday, Wednesday may be kind of the laggers of the week.
Ian, is the setup in Asheville similar to the way it is in Nashville? Is it that kind of 50% occupancy in restaurants and people can come and they're doing it, or is it different?
So the challenge is to answer that. The answer right now is, at this point, yes, but that has fluctuated so much. I mean, Florida is another example where they actually opened up. They were allowed to open up, and suddenly, unless you serve food, it all got canceled. You're not even allowed to be there for to go, or even the to go is challenged at this point.
Wow.
So it's hard to even keep up with the different processes, but sort of, James, like you mentioned before, brewers are resilient. If there is a path forward or a way to eke out a solution, they're going to take it. You mentioned the collaboration between breweries, and that's one of the things that I've always loved about this industry. In Asheville here, you've got some breweries that are production facilities that have tons and tons of distro, but also have a big space where they can set up a drive-through to-go beer area. Highwire Brewing, for instance.
Yeah.
So pretty close in the midst of the shutdown, they started having special days, typically a Saturday, where they would invite all of the other breweries in the area to bring flats of their packaged beer, and you could just drive up. You'd order it with a one-time use paper menu, open up your trunk. They would then drop the beer off there. You'd shout your credit card info over to them, and you could be getting Highwire beer. You could be getting cideries, meads, and 20 to 30 other different breweries' products. That kind of stuff, that's gonna keep people afloat. But then you're also having to see some states where if they've got to serve food, you can pay 25 cents for 3 French fries when you order that beer, and that'll allow you to actually sit down and enjoy a beer on site. It's a little bit madness.
I've never in my life only wanted 3 French fries. I think I would go
I
ahead
know, right?
and order. And while they're at it, can they put some chili and cheese on it or something? Like, go ahead and give me a meal, I think. So Ian, back to, how have you seen COVID affect what you guys are doing at Country Malt? Obviously, you're one of the larger suppliers of brewing ingredients in the States. What are you guys seeing on the ground? What are your sales reps saying and hearing from brewers, all that jazz?
It's a big question. I think the quickest answer is it's been somewhat brutal, and then also a little bit better than feared. We have a complete traveling freeze. Not even able to go visit local breweries for a work purpose. You know, if you're going to go pick up beer to enjoy at home or say hello, that's entirely up to you as an individual. But no one's traveling. You know, we obviously stocked up our warehouses for a certain volume and quickly found ourselves sitting extremely long on a lot of products in March and April. We reduced that inventory level down significantly to wait out the COVID situation. Come May and June, suddenly there was enough forward movement with customers around the country, around North America, that we ended up being out of stock of a ton of stuff. So we had to switch that number from, I think, 60 or 70% of what we thought we do back to 100%. And in some areas, especially here in the East, Matt, thanks to folks like you, we've had to go up to 120 or even 130% of what we had planned inventory-wise. I think the real challenge is the fluctuation and the change that's occurring on a daily basis. States are open and excelling and then shutting down. We had a lot of folks that had placed orders and then had to cancel those orders mid delivery because they wouldn't have any use for them all, or they weren't even allowed to go into their building if they were out on the West Coast in some areas. Now, a lot of that has sort of clarified itself, but you know, then you have people that are, I mean, they're on the razor's edge of being able to survive another day. And one of the things we've been doing is working with folks if they're having trouble paying their bills. You know, we got to work that balance of still asking for payment at some point, but also giving them the leeway to survive and delay that payment and so on. And if you are a customer of ours and you're hearing that, all we ask is that you actually reach out to us and talk to us about that. Our finance group is phenomenal and we'll work with you on that front as long as you're talking to them. If you hang up on us and don't answer, and we don't know how to help you. But I'm sure that's something you guys have probably dealt with on your own.
That's the exact same approach we've taken. As long as people are answering the phone and answering emails and answering texts, then yeah, let's keep everything moving. But as soon as you've stopped answering the phone, you've kind of already decided you don't want to pay us. So we can not do this anymore, kind of thing.
Right.
So
it's a call out to everybody. We want you to survive. We want you to be successful so that we can keep working with you.
It's just interesting how, you know, we've seen a lot of stuff on the media in Europe about what's happening in the States specifically, I suppose, at the moment, and in the South and the Southeast and Florida and Texas, and it's just interesting to get a first-hand perspective on how accurate maybe some of those media reports are. So yeah, it is. It's sad to see so many things spiral out of people's control despite so many best efforts and sacrifices that have been taken, you know, and we're fortunate here in Europe that you know, things are just for a bunch of reasons just didn't get that far, but you know, perhaps they will in the future. And it's, you know, I think it's a lesson to all of us, certainly on this side of the pond, that if regulations kind of relax and if social distancing guidelines, you know, pubs open up again, we all need to have a collective responsibility not to go out and get wasted and start hugging each other and kissing each other and spreading things around. So there's a lesson there for all of us. Like, it's, you know, there, but for the grace of God, go us, really, when you look at it.
Amen. And wear a mask.
And wear a mask.
That's it.
Wear a mask. So, like, and just in terms of like beer size, so one of the things, like, obviously COVID's kind of changed what's happening on the ground, but you know, what trends have you guys been seeing over the last 12 months? Not talking COVID, but talking in terms of styles of beer. Like, what's rising, what's becoming more popular, and likewise, what's kind of dropping off and kind of fading into the background?
Spiked seltzers.
Oh.
That is the biggest trend. It makes me sad to say that. we're probably going to start making some. But it's not just the big macro breweries. There's a lot of small craft breweries now starting to make that garbage. Yeah. And then IPA still the king. Fruited IPAs are super popular. Obviously, hazies are still ripping. Fruited hazies. It seems like the big, super high calorie, like milkshake IPAs are not as popular as they were. And session beers. Session style beers are becoming more popular, which I think is absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we haven't seen
IPA.
We haven't seen too many of those fruited IPAs over here this side, have we? Will?
Not too many.
There's a few, but
yeah, people tend to go more with the fruited sour side of things, and more of the lactosey IPA.
Yeah, milkshake IPAs.
Yeah,
but again, that's where you guys were 12 months, 18 months, 24 months ago. Like, when we just kind of lag behind. There's always that time lag. You know, hazy.
Everybody wants an alcoholic beverage that's less than 100 calories. So, yeah, that's why the seltzer thing is so popular. I mean,
sub 100 calories.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I had my first hard seltzer last weekend, and it was just, it tasted like static on a radio. It was just, no.
Yeah, it's like radio static while someone yells the name of a fruit from the room next door.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think Matt covered it superbly well. Hazies were all the rage 2 years ago. Milkshake IPAs, fruited sours, those have translated into fruited session or fruited IPAs. And hard seltzers are going nuts everywhere. And I, too, kind of want to rag on them, but they're paying the bills and keeping places open that might not have been able to do it otherwise. And they're simple to make. That said, you can make an okay hard seltzer, or you can make a really good hard seltzer. And I've only had a few really good hard seltzers where it does not taste like a mouthful of old static. But there's folks that are making that using good fruit purees and good flavor profiles, natural ingredients in there. The sub 100 calorie.
You got to be careful.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're going to start using real fruit purees and stuff, you got to be really careful though, because you'll get above 100 calories.
That's the trick.
So that most people are just using drops flavoring, but I think as far as the base liquid before you add whatever you're going to add to it, it's delicate. Any flaws you make are going to go through it, and I think you've got to really pay attention to your water chemistry when you're making that garbage. And sorry, I like beer flavored beer, but we're going to make it, and we're going to make it great. We'll make it. People will buy it. I'm just not extremely thrilled about, making hard seltzer. Just doesn't do it for me.
Oh my God, there's so many memes on Instagram and like Brewers Suck and all that about guys having to make hard seltzer all day long, and all they want is to make beer flavored beer again. But it's like paying the bills.
So I've been coming to the States and hanging out with you, Ian, for the last 5 years or so. And since then, every time I've come over and I've asked the question, what's the next trend? Every brewer I've asked has been lagers. It's definitely lagers. Lagers are coming. Watch this space. And I have a theory that's just because brewers want to drink lager and they're sick of drinking IPAs.
It's wishful thinking. It'd be a brilliant, beautiful thing if that were to be the case. But it just hasn't clicked yet, I guess. It does for some places. There's a couple of breweries that really go all in, and that's their main operating model. They're planning on having the tanks filled up longer, and they're okay with that and budgeting their time and resources accordingly. and they're making absolutely phenomenal beer that I want to drink as much as I can possibly get my hands on. I do think we're starting to move away from the rushed lagers.
Yeah.
I don't know, Matt, if you'd agree with that, but like the people that are perhaps banging out lagers that aren't really qualified to do it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Someone was telling me how they made a lager in like 2.5 weeks, and I was just like, okay. Great.
Yeah.
Do you want some? I'm like, nah, it's all right.
If you're going to do it with intention.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making a real light one, I mean, I've made some good light session lagers in 4 weeks, but they were super low ABV, you know. But I think the low and slow way is the way to go if you want a real quality lager. Just buy more tanks. Ferment your stuff longer. Cellar it
Have a
longer.
dedicated tank.
Yeah, big, huge dedicated tanks.
Mm-hmm. I will say the sub 100 calorie beers, they are becoming a personal favorite. You know, you can enjoy 4 or 5 of them in an evening, and not wreck your body in doing so, and still have quite an enjoyable beer experience.
So Ian, do you cut that off if a beer is 101 calories? That's just not your thing anymore? Or
no, the problem is they won't advertise that, right? Like I'm perfectly happy 150, 200, but unless it's 100 or under, they don't throw it on the can.
Interesting.
Well, if it's 101, it's within the margin of error, right?
Yeah, 120, bro.
So
And like, is that? Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, you go ahead. Jump in.
I was gonna say, like, are those trends kind of? You see any other regional trends maybe kicking off either further west or further north? Like obviously the hazy trend started in New England and then migrated south and west and around the world. Is there any kind of other regional things happening outside your backyards?
Yeah, it's a good question. I prior to COVID, I've always been excited by your more wild fermented beers, foeder aged beers, things like that. It's when done skillfully, every sip can just be a phenomenal experience. I don't think those are likely happening as much, considering everyone's just getting beer to go, and I'm hoping that won't fade away when we do reopen life again. But other crazy trends, I don't know. I just, barley wine's always got a good place. I'm always happy to drink a barley wine if I see it.
Kevin Lowe.
Yep, Kevin Lowe. And our buddy Charlie Mears, he has a Cigar City collaboration with his new brewery, Magnanimous. And they're doing Charlie Wine Week next week. So it's going to be first barley wine released in conjunction with Cigar City. Hoping to get my hands on that if somebody's listening.
You can ship some to us because I do have a soft spot for barley wine. Look, I'm cute.
See how that works with the Florida guys.
Ship me barley wine.
I still have a bottle of yours. Well.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Lovely. You should drink that shit.
Yeah. It's ready to drink. It's being stored properly.
Very good. Well, let's. One thing we haven't touched on so far is the main topic, or a topic that connects us all, and that's the giant pile of stuff that James is sitting on there.
And snacking on. He's been teasing us with it the whole time.
Are you just eating handfuls of dried barley?
Well, I keep picking out all these little ladybugs that I find.
Oh,
I don't eat them. I don't eat
ladybugs.
No. I don't eat them. I'm trying to just, this place. It's just full of them. I don't eat them, but they're. I just think
they bring good luck.
They bring good luck.
You've been snacking on something back there.
Oh no, I'm snacking on barley. I'm snacking on barley.
All right.
How is the harvest? I mean, you're knee deep in it, right?
Well, yeah. So yes and no. So right now this is our winter barley harvest. So it's not our malting barley. This is our so this pile of barley goes for animal feed. So it'll go for chickens, for pigs, for beef cattle mostly. And it just fits into the rotation, so it allows us to put different crops in the same field over years. And it's this is for right in the middle of winter barley harvest, and it's been tough. This is a tough harvest for us, because our winter barley went in last October, and then it rained for like Noah's Ark for like 4 months. It just rained. It was the wettest winter we've had in years. And then around about the middle of March, it stopped raining and didn't start again until the start of June. So we went from extreme flood to extreme drought, and this stuff got hit really bad. And what's happened is, as we move through harvest, yields are back about 30%, which is a problem. And we also have this kind of problem as we're going through harvest, where we get these. Let me see if I can show you. Probably not, but in grains we have, you might be able to see them. They're all different colors. So you got like dark gold all the way through the completely blanched white, and a couple of green ones in there as well. And what's been happening is, because the plant has been so stressed at various stages during its life, it's not ripening evenly. So we get these some grains at the top of the plant which are really, really ripe, and then it gets less ripe as it goes down the head, and the bottom ones are still green. And that's a problem when it comes to what we do here in the yard, which is store it, dry it, and try and manage it. So we got to figure out how to calm these grains down and take a lot of the heat and energy out of them, so that they'll store well. Because if we treat them wrong, a lot of the heat that's in them that'll just generate a lot of spontaneous microbial action, and we'll end up with some pretty nasty barley if we're not careful. But it's fine. We'll deal with it. Spring barley, on the other hand, malting barley, which you guys are good enough to use, that harvest will kick off in about 2 to 3 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks, middle or and second half of August. So that crop will be interesting, because, like I said, it didn't rain from the middle of March, so we planted that right at the end of March. Great conditions for planting, lovely time of year. Got it in, got it planted, and then didn't rain. Got no rain until the beginning of June, which was not fun if you're a barley plant. We like our barley plants like lots of rain, a little and often. A bit like how I like my beer, little and often. So it didn't get rain until the start of June, but rainfall's been good since then. Disease pressure has been really low, and the crop has done pretty well out in the field, and it's still doing okay. So if we get kind of normal conditions between now and the end of August, we should have a reasonable crop. The variable that we don't know is what impact it will have on protein levels. So hopefully protein levels will still stay quite low at below 10.5%, but we don't know that number until the combines roll. It's the last variable that we've got no control over, and you don't know until the combines start cutting. So that's 3 to 4 weeks away. So fingers crossed, it should be okay.
Do you see? So obviously, James, we had a pretty shit harvest in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
For yields, for proteins, for everything, pretty much perfect storm. Do you see, how would you compare what you're seeing out in the field with our 20 spring barley crop to where we were this same time in 18?
Slightly different. So 18's dry spell came later. So this year it was very dry from the middle of March to the beginning of June. 18, it was very dry from the middle of May until the middle of August. Also about an 8-week spell, but it was later in the plant's life cycle. So the effects were different. So in 18 we had an impact on yield, and we lost some grain. But funny enough, the impact on protein was not really significant. We didn't really have any protein issues. Protein stayed within target. That was fine. Probably because it was so wet, so dry during the second half of the plant's life cycle. It just didn't absorb any nitrogen out of the ground. This year is different. We've got more rainfall in the second half of the plant's life cycle. First half was very dry. Second half was okay. So it'll be interesting to see what that plant has done with the nitrogen that's been in the ground. We've seen some. The other weird thing that we've got this year that we didn't really have in 2018 was when rain did come, some plants germinated later than the other than the primary plant. And what we end up now is a little bit of uneven. We're going to have some uneven ripening as well, and we're going to probably have a situation like this, like we have with our winter barley, where we get these grains that are some are ripe and some are not, and that can be problematic, especially for malting, because when you harvest a grain that's not ripe for malting purposes, it tends to lose its germination capacity, so it won't germinate in malt house, and that's where you get a lot of glassy corns from and stuff like that if you're not careful. So choosing the harvesting window is going to be crucial this year. We're going to have to really wait as long as we can before harvesting, even if it means some of the grains becoming overripe and we lose some to the ground. That'll be okay, because we need to make sure that the ones we do harvest are not underripe. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between this year and 18.
See, I know that you're describing what has the potential to be an absolute nightmare for you, and there's a lot of skill and heritage and education that goes into making this work. But for a lot of brewers, they're just getting a sack of malt, 50 pounds, 55 pounds, and they don't know why this bag is a little bit different than the one they got a month prior, or the one they get in 6 months later. It's an agricultural product, and the amount of thinking and energy and skill that goes into making this as consistent as possible and as usable as possible just blows my mind. I mean, hearing you talk about everything that's going to have to go into making a quality Loughran malt, it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, like it's variable, and I'm not too sure how good the camera is on this, but let me see if I can show you, like, just where I'm standing. I'm not sure if you can see that, but like, so this is all barley, and it's just from two different fields. But I'm not sure if you can see, like, this pile is a slightly more orange, darker color than this pile here, which is lighter in color, and that's just a function of ripeness. And there's that variability that we've to manage here in the yard, in the drying yard. And it's the same variety. It was sown within 2 days of each other. Two fields aren't that far away, like 3 or 4 miles apart. But you get that kind of variety, and you're going to have a difference in that case. So it's for feed, so it's not as important. But those kind of varieties, that kind of differential happens in malting as well. And some of those grains are going to have more starch in them. Some of those grains are going to have a higher amount of free amino acids. So your fan's going to be different. So there's going to be a lot of variation. So yeah, part of our skill is to try and get this to be as uniform as possible. Try and blend the right grains and the right percentages from field to field, so that the batches that go through to the brewer is pretty as consistent as is reasonably possible. And that's something that's takes a bit of practice.
And the part that blows my mind too, you reference these two fields that are just 2 or 3 miles from one another. The weather plays such an important role. And if you've ever stood outside of your house and you're getting rained on, and you look over and your neighbor's house is completely dry, it could be the same, but with hail or a deep freeze or a thaw, and that would completely decimate one farmer's barley harvest and then propel another farmer's barley harvest to be phenomenal barley malt. It's so much management has to go into getting across the line.
Yeah, and a large number of those variables that we've talked about today are utterly out of our control. It's weather. It's too wet, it's too dry, too cold, it's too hot. Traditionally, weather patterns here in Ireland, especially where we are in the northeast of Ireland, have been very stable, very predictable, and very, very safe. We're after having two extremes in 2 years of extreme weather in the last three. It's very unusual, very, very unusual. Whether it's a sign of things to come, we don't know. Whether it's a sign of whether it's a sign of changes in global warming, climate change, whatever it may be. Yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that it's climate is going to become more variable. It's going to become more irrational and volatile, and that's going to have an impact, globally on food and commodity prices, and just makes things less stable. And when you throw in variables like coronavirus as well, it's not ideal. But we'll deal with it. We cannot control the weather, so we worry about the things that we can control instead.
Amen. Wear a mask.
And wear a mask. So yeah, you guys have been using our malt. Like you guys have been good enough to stock it since like 2015, 2016, which has been terrific. And I think, Matt, you've been using it since 3-4 years, I guess, something like that.
Since 2016.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our first takers of it, I think.
Yeah, Ian turned me on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Stout malt.
That was a good pitching. So thank you for that.
Matt, I still remember our first conversation. I was driving through the mountains of Colorado, talking to you. Just landed in Nashville from Colorado.
That's funny.
Yeah, you guys have done a phenomenal job. James, Will, we love your guys' malt. I think it really appeals to a couple specific groups. You have folks that are looking for the Irish heritage, whether that's where they're from or that's the styles of beer that they want to make or the style of the brewery, and they want something as authentic as possible. And you really can't get any more authentic than what you're producing. And then on the other side, you get people that are just looking for a phenomenal and unique malt. You guys produce some incredibly plump, flavorful barley that's fairly unmatched across the rest of the EU. Now, obviously malt that's made in Scotland and the UK is going to have different flavor profiles, but your Irish malt is fantastic, and people that do use it absolutely love it. And there's a bit of a price premium to it because it is such small batch and it's coming just from you and your farm. And the people that taste that and continue to use it recognize that it's well worth that extra price.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that we really enjoy doing is talking to brewers like Matt and some of the brewers that you've introduced me to, Ian, and having chats to them and getting some of that feedback and getting being able to see something that I've walked in the field, something I've planted, something I've grown, and see that barley being turned into a great IPA or a great beer, and then drinking is very satisfying. I really get to enjoy that.
And Matt, what has you keep coming back to it?
Well, we predominantly use it in bigger beers and beers that have especially our 1927 IPA, which is a 7.5% IPA, pretty big IPA. It's also great in any beers that have a lot of adjuncts in it. The DP on all it's always good. Protein's low. It flies right through our mash filter. But if you're making IPAs, a big IPA needs a good stage for all the hops to stand on, and it's the best platform out there, especially if you're using adjuncts. Like in our Imperial IPAs, we're using some sugar so the beer's not too sweet, so that it's dry enough and appropriate. Has no problem fermenting out really low, and we've gone up to a little over 10% with it, and it ferments out super low. None of the other malts that I've tried, and I've tried pretty much everything out there, can compare with High Gravity Brewing as the Loughran stout malt. And, you know, I would think that if you're doing other IPAs with a lot of adjuncts with high percentages of fruit and lactose and their stuff, you know, just try it once and see what you think. If it's not for you, fine. But, you know, the reason why it's a stout malt is because stouts have a lot of adjuncts in and a lot of unfermentables, a lot of other weird stuff in them, especially over in that part of the world. And, man, the Loughran malt is it's my favorite, hands down. Now I got to use the regular ale malt for the first time this year, and if anyone out there is making any malt forward beers or even pale ales that are a little on the malty side compared to an IPA, that stuff is awesome. It's awesome. But yeah, IPA, stout malt, great. High Gravity Brewing, try it.
Have you tried the IPA malt in a barley wine yet?
Well, actually, we did in wasn't like a true barley wine. It was Old Burton Extra, so it was more like a English strong ale. And that thing was all malt, and it just chugged away. That thing finished out really low. It was, I think it finished out at like a little over 3 Plato, and it came in at like 8.5%.
Wow, 3 Plato at 8.5%. That's
no sugar in it. So that's, you know, if you're around 3 Plato, terminal gravity with no adjuncts, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, with no simple sugars in there.
You know, crank it in low on the conversion temp and let her rip, man. It converts fast. It has a nice light color. That's another reason why I really liked it for making IPAs is, you know, it's always at like 1.82 lava bond in color. For the most part, I think it might have been one year was a tiny bit higher, but you know, if you're with the amount of malt that goes into a 10% IPA, you know, there's a big difference in your beer color between 2 lava bond and 3 lava bond.
Yeah.
You want to keep it lighter in color. So.
Indeed.
So, James, with all of this flattery, are you going to reward us with a Scrooge McDuck into that barley pile?
Oh, possibly, yeah. Definitely.
Just swimming?
Head first, James. Head first.
Is that something the kids do?
I liked the stuff so much. I went to Ireland and went to James's shop, and I've actually stood right where James is standing.
Yeah,
checked it all out.
You were here. You were here not that long. It was.
I was hanging out in Dundalk.
It was
great.
It was this coming weekend last year that Matt was here.
Yeah.
It was 51 weeks ago that Matt was with us.
Yeah, we took you to Extravaganza, didn't we? That was good. That was a great weekend.
Yeah, went to my first Irish football game. It was awesome.
Right.
It's a great game.
So Ian, when are you going to come and see us?
Well, you know, you keep inviting folks. Matt's the first one that actually took you up on it and had a great time. So I guess I'm next.
I spent
as soon as we're allowed to cross borders again, perhaps.
That'll be great.
I spent a week in my van driving Matt on the grand tour of Ireland.
Yeah,
that's killer.
And thanks again. Will went above and beyond. It was great.
Any excuse I have to make my boss buy my beers and dinner is fine with me.
You guys had a lot of fun. You had a lot of fun that week.
Yeah, it was one of the best weeks ever. I'm greatly appreciated for the hospitality.
You're very welcome.
Fantastic.
Well,
look, I think that's about.
Any other things we want to talk about? Any other questions? Anything else?
Just any other brewers out there, keep your head down, stay flexible. We're right there with you. If you haven't used Loughran malt in an IPA yet, you should. Stuff is great. If if anyone else has any questions out there on why we love that stuff, feel free to contact me at Tennessee Brew Works.
Thank you so much.
And
if you're Ian, you need to come visit us.
To buy some Loughran Family Malt, get in touch with Ian.
That's right. Got in our warehouses. Give us a shout.
Well, thank you guys for joining us this week, even with the 5-hour time difference. Thanks for jumping in, having a couple of beers with us, and talking to us about what you guys have going on and all that jazz. And thanks to everyone for joining us on another episode of Brew Craic. We'll see you.
Just to say it, just one more, like, you guys, Ian and Matt, you guys have been incredibly supportive of everything we've done for so long. So yeah, thank you once again. It's always fun catching up, and looking forward to doing it in person soon, and having a real beer face to face.
Cheers to that.